So Charles, you have lived in New York your whole life. Is that right?
Except when in school, yes.
Right, except when in school. I thought maybe we could start just by talking a little bit about the day, September 11th, where you were, what
Hmm.
you remember, just sort of in your own words.
Sure. Well, it was a beautiful, not a cloud in the sky day, kind of similar to today. Was in my apartment on East 84th Street, and I got a call from my sister-in-law, I think at 8:30, that the World Trade Center had been hit by a plane. So I didn't know what was going on. I looked out my window, and you could see it way downtown from my apartment at that time. I think now there's some taller buildings in the way, but you could see the Trade Center just burning. Um, and I mean, it was really nerve wracking to me because my two groomsmen were on the 104th floor of one of the buildings, and they worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, and our friend Howard Lutnick was the CEO there. That's why I had a couple friends who worked there, because we were all college friends, and it was just really, really a harrowing day. Hoping that they would get out, but they were unfortunately trapped and didn't make it. So I spent the following 3 weeks, 4 weeks, just shuttling between the two families. My friend Calvin's 8-month pregnant wife, LaShance, who has since gone on to win a Emmy Award for The Color Purple. She's a very talented actress and singer.
Wow.
But it was just really harrowing going there. And my friend Doug Gardner's sister Danielle. I grew up with Doug. Knew him my whole life. Our mothers were roommates before they were married. So someone was my good friend for my whole life. And they were both friends. Worked at Cantor Fitzgerald for Howard. And it was just a very tragic, sad, life-changing experience for me.
Yeah, yeah. And so at the time, 90 West, did your family's development company own 90 West at the
No,
time?
no, that
Okay.
was it was several months after that we actually bought into a partnership with an Israeli firm, and they had already done a lot of the architecture, but had not built it. And we were, a little worried because there was extensive facade damage, and had no idea how to evaluate how much that cost. But we worked out a deal that our costs would be capped at a certain amount, and everything above that would be on them. So it gave us enough security to join the partnership.
And what was that building at the time? Do you remember?
It was an office building for its entire life. I believe. I mean, there were renovations going on at the time of the attack, I believe, and it was covered in scaffolding. And I don't think it was occupied at the time. I'm not 100% sure, but I
Okay.
think it was empty at the time of the attacks. And
And it was the
yeah,
Cass Gilbert building, right?
correct. Yes, yes, it was the precursor to the Woolworth. Um,
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. So this beautiful historic building
Mhm.
with some really incredible features, incredible detail. And what did it look like after the dust settled of 9/11?
Um, the copper roof was melted. There was extensive damage on a lot of the terracotta tiles that made up the facade. Even the base, which is granite, had burned on the northern facade, which is where the trade center was.
Wow.
Which is like incredible, for granite to burn, it's got to be pretty hot, and
Yeah.
nonetheless it did.
Wow. And so what was your role in the restoration of this building?
Well, I was one of the owners, so I went to all the construction meetings and followed closely along, and was part of the decision-making team. What to do with design decisions, construction decisions, etc.
Mhm. And there were a couple really unique decisions, I think, that you made in this building from what Brian has told us. Can you talk to us a little bit about restoring some of the really sort of unique features of this building, the terracotta tiles and the
Well, I mean, they're
gargoyles?
not, yeah, there's not many places that manufacture terracotta tile. And when that was 2002, I guess, um, we had someone actually who we still work with, Mark Anderson, because he does our facade work. We have facade repair cycles in New York, so we still work with him. But this was the first time we met him, and he had his mountain climbing gear. I'm not kidding. And he just climbed every surface of the exterior and marked each terracotta tile either like fine, needs repair, or needs replacement, one of three things. So he did an extensive survey of this building with his gear on. And
How long did that take?
I'm not sure. I think a lot of that was done before we actually joined the partnership.
Mhm.
But I imagine it was like a couple weeks that I could ask him.
That's
But
amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
so yeah, he did that, and then we found Boston Valley Terracotta, who's out of Buffalo, New York. And, they had done terracotta replacement on Sullivan's Bayard building in the city, among other things. So it was just a really, really good company, and one of the only people doing that work. And they manufactured all the replacement terracotta that we needed, and they did the new gargoyles for us that we could talk about.
Yeah, talk to me about those gargoyles. I understand that some of the faces may have changed a little bit.
Well, we had my father, who was actually the best of all the ones we did, because he kind of, his face kind of lent itself to being a gargoyle. And we had my cousin, who was also an associate and worked on the building, and his daughters. I opted out of it for some reason. It's like, now I don't need a gargoyle. But then we did my friend Doug Gardner, who was one of the people in the Trade Center that Paris. So we did his likeness so he could look over that site for eternity.
Wow. Wow. That's really incredible. And I think I read somewhere that some of the remains of that day, some of the scarring of the building was left intact. Is that right?
I think we did that with some, I can't remember exactly. It might have been some of the carved granite um, at the top of the granite base. But most of the granite on the north side we had to replace, and it was done pretty ingeniously. They didn't have really wide fat granite like they did in the turn of the century. So it was 2-inch granite with a metal frame behind it, and the granite had to fly from the quarry on the East Coast, I think, out to the West Coast to get this frame, and then actually from East Coast, and then it had to be cut, and then from cut to put on this frame, and then back to the building. So it logged some miles, that granite, before
Yeah,
it
sure
was
did.
installed. But it looks great. And the quarry that was originally used was closed, but we found a quarry close to it, and it was pretty similar, the granite.
Wow. What was it like for you working on this building when just across the street this horrible event had happened?
It was very,
And
yeah.
yeah, what
It
was
was
that
very
like?
tough for me. I didn't want to go down there at first. And fortunately, this was like when we started, was maybe half a year after the fact. And it was hard for me even to be anywhere near there. But eventually, after some time passed, I was able to go down there and be okay with it.
Yeah, yeah. So when you think about this restoration now, like, what does it signify for New York? What does it signify for you, and just the resiliency of humans in general?
Well, I mean, it's exactly it. It's rebirth. New York can't be intimidated. We're not going to die. We're always going to fight back when something happens. we made it through that. We made it through Hurricane Sandy, where the building had extensive damage because it's right at sea level down there,
Yeah.
and we had the basement completely flooded and water 4 feet high in the base in the lobby even. So we had to repair it. Then we built a mezzanine in our garage that lifted a lot of the electric system above where that flood was. So that was a bit of work to do, but we're always like fighting back, and I think that's that's like part of the New York attitude, I guess.
Yeah. Was there, when you were restoring this building, did you always have it in your head that it would be a residential?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's all we do.
residential.
We don't do commercial at all.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I mean that was the plan before we even bought into the partnership.
yeah. Okay. So as Dr. Jordan mentioned, a lot of the students that we have in school right now were toddlers or even not even born on 9/11. And so it for somebody who wasn't cognizant of the events of that day, what is important for them to understand? What can they take away from the events of 9/11 that maybe they can even take with them as they go to build our cities and build our communities?
Just be vigilant. There are bad actors out there, but we can overcome all of that, and we have. It's a horrible time, and hopefully they won't see anything like that. To be attacked in the homeland.
Yeah,
It's shocking to us. We didn't think in our wildest dreams that anything like that could happen. It would affect my good friends, and it was just a wake up call.
yeah. What did your friend's family think about you putting his likeness into the
I
building
mean,
like that?
yeah, they're very close family friends. As I said, our mothers were roommates, and I think they were touched. It's just very, very difficult for them to even like deal with it, because it's just a horrible thing. He had 2 children that he left behind,
Yeah,
and but they were touched. They were very close friends, and they appreciated it for sure.
yeah. And how will you be spending next Saturday?
I haven't even thought about it. Hopefully at home, and just it always chokes me up every September 11th. I guess this one's a big one, the 20th anniversary. So I'll probably just be hanging out at home. I'll do my daily swim, which keeps me sane, and that's probably it.
Okay. Well, Charles, this has been really terrific, and we really appreciate you sharing this story with us.
Oh,
And
my
we're
pleasure.
really excited to share it with our students.